Good afternoon and welcome to our Facebook Live broadcast. My name is Cindy Speaker. I have with me today Karen Byrnes-Noon, and she is with Michael J. O'Connor and Associates. She's going to talk with us today about wills and estates, something important to all of us. So Karen, thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Cindy. I appreciate you allowing me to be here today. Thank you.
You bet. Karen, tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've been an attorney.
Well, I've been an attorney for over 30 years. I know that when I say that, it sounds such a long time, but it is a long time. Most of my work, I was in a district attorney's office. I was in Lycoming County District Attorney's Office, Lebanon County, and then I was in where our home base is in Schuylkill County for over 25 years. I was actually the district attorney for the last 2 years of me being in the office. Which translates, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit, to much litigation experience. I had hearings last week, and while I was preparing for a hearing, the woman said to me, do you do a lot of hearings? And I told her, I said, just so that you understand, this is a hearing in front of a workers' compensation judge, and it's obviously very important to you. I have tried jury trials. I've tried homicide cases. I've tried horrendous sexual assault cases. And she said, I feel comfortable with you. And I think that that's really important to understand that all of the attorneys in our office have that litigation background. And I think it translates well into what we do in our office. But I've been an attorney for 30 years and have a lot of litigation experience. And I try to talk to my clients well in advance of hearings, because I think that's really important as well, to be prepared for your hearing, because I know that if you're not prepared for a hearing, what can happen. So it's important to us to have our clients prepared and be prepared for this case, which is obviously very important for our clients.
Right, right. Well, you mentioned the idea that all that litigation experience translates into your work now. Can you expand on that a little bit?
I sure can. With having 30 years of trying very serious cases, I look at a workers' compensation case. I look at any case that we deal with here in the office as a serious case, because it affects the lives of the people who are our clients. And when we do that, when I'm preparing for something, I tell people that my experience is that we have to have all of our ducks in a row, which is up front. We have to have the medical evidence. We have to have making sure that you have all of your doctors who you treat with, everything up front. Because when we prepare like that, when we prepare a case, and I refer to it as have all your ducks in a row, the hearing goes so much better for the client, so much better for the claimant. As I mentioned, I had 2 hearings last week, and preparing the client, I was on the phone with her about 2 days or 3 days before the hearing for almost an hour and a half. And I think that's important. I think that's really important in order for the person to know what's expected of them during the hearing, obviously to tell the truth, but also to know what's going to, how is this going to play out? What is the defense counsel going to ask me in that regard? You had asked about, my role here at Michael J. O'Connor and Associates. And those of you who like baseball, which I tend to watch a lot of baseball at this time of year, I like to refer to myself as the pinch hitter. We have wonderful attorneys in this office, and the fact that we are very busy. And sometimes another person has to step in and do the hearing. And the only reason that Attorney O'Connor would want someone like me in the office is because of the fact that I have such litigation experience. Right. He knows, and the attorneys in the office know, that I'm not going to go to a hearing unprepared. It just won't happen. It's not in my nature. It's not who I am. I can't do it. I won't be sleeping the night before. So I talk to my clients. I make sure that they understand what's going on. I talk to them afterwards. And as I said, I think that I know that they appreciate that. At least I would hope that they do. And we try very hard at our hearings to make sure that they have wonderful representation.
Yeah, yeah. And I know they do. Your office has a tremendous reputation.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And it's obviously with regard to the hard work of many, many people in this office.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Karen, talk a little bit about power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, and those types of issues, and how important it is for the average person to have them in place.
Powers of attorney, when I explain them to people, and recently I gave a little talk to the Fractal Business Association, and I brought in a pair of shoes. And of course, everybody was like, why does she have a pair of shoes in front of her? And I said, the way to describe a power of attorney is that you're basically asking another person to walk in your shoes. If you can go over to the bank and take all of your money out of that bank, so can your power of attorney. So it is, before you make the decision of having someone to be your power of attorney, make sure it's the person that you trust impeccably. That's one of the ways I try to describe how important this particular document is.
That's a great analogy.
It is a great analysis. It really is. Yeah. And the other thing is that it's really important to get this before a person while the person is competent and before they turn to having issues that they can't make their own decisions.
Right.
We get phone calls all the time about my mother or my father has dementia, and we would like to have a power of attorney. The problem is that you cannot, under any circumstances, draft a power of attorney when a person is incompetent. It's a whole other procedure. It's called guardianship, and it's really it's lots more things that have to be done. A doctor has to testify at a hearing. All these people have to be notified through the mail. It's a lot of paperwork, and it's a much more complicated proceeding than a power of attorney, which can be done, as I said, in our office. But it is a great deal of power to give to someone, and it is also important that people have these documents in place, because we never know what's going to happen to us.
Right.
We just don't ever know that. And if we don't have them in place, then a person cannot take care of the other person's bills, cannot take care of the other person's house. It's just the way it is. It's the way banks operate, because I understand their position. They want to protect your money. Yeah. With a healthcare power of attorney, I actually had a very sad situation, but it was also something that reminded me how important healthcare powers of attorney are. I had a friend, very young. She was very young, and something happened to her, and it was very sad. It was not going to work out well for her, and it did not work out well for her. She did pass away. But one of the things that her husband and her family said, that they were so glad that she had done a healthcare power of attorney prior to this illness, and well before this illness, because it is very difficult for family members to make decisions. Medical terms are thrown at you. So many other people are asking you, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And they didn't have to make those decisions because she had made them already. Yeah. That's the advantages of a power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney. Your family is dealing with a variety of different issues with reference to your medical care. You should have that's what I tell people. What you're doing with these documents you are making your family's life easier. And there is no one who doesn't want to do that. They want to be able to make the decisions easier on their family. And when I didn't really get a chance to speak to her husband, but I know through friends and family that they were so grateful that she had put this healthcare power of attorney together a very long time ago. And they knew what she wanted. She did not want to have these invasive procedures. She didn't want to be on life support for the next 15 years. That's not what she wanted. So it was such a comforting, and I know that's very hard to look at it that way, but from the family's point of view, they weren't the ones who had to make the decision. It was, she had already done that. Decisions were made. Yes, she passed away, and they had to deal with all of those issues. And again, very sad. But it does take some of that little bit of, I just can't make that decision, right now, especially when something horrendous happens. I hope that nothing horrendous happens to anyone. We all do that. But unfortunately, it's life, and things do happen. And when something happens like this, it's really important to know that there's documents in place to deal with them, legal documents, and we can help people with that. We can help people with their powers of attorney, with their healthcare powers of attorney. And I know that you want me to go into the wills and estates as well.
But let me ask you a question first. With the healthcare power of attorney, what happens if someone does not have that in place? And suppose they're, 50 years old and have a heart attack. If that is not in place, are the doctors, do they have to use heroic measures?
Okay, and this is the problem. This is why the reason that the healthcare power of attorney is so important. Uh, this particular woman, both of her parents are still alive, and her husband as well. So what if, I mean, she had one, but what if
Right.
she didn't, and her
Yeah.
parents say one thing and her husband says another? Then you're starting into a legal battle.
Yes.
The parents say, "Oh, we want to keep her alive." The husband says, "That's not what she wanted. She told me all the time that I didn't want." It gets
Right.
very, very messy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then, what does happen? Do they file documents as to whose will is it going to be? Is it her
Right.
parents? Is it her husband and her children? It gets very, very messy. That's why, as I said, no one wants to think about being 50 years old and having a heart attack or a stroke or anything like that. But unfortunately, it happens. And when it does happen, it was such and again, I don't like to use the word relief, but I think the family felt comforted that she had made the decisions. This is what I want. If I'm in that state, I don't want this to happen. And then they don't have to make those decisions.
Yeah.
But just think of it. I mean, a lot of times, because of the fact that our parents are living longer, which is great. The parents versus the husband. Nobody
Right.
wants to put their family in that position. It's just horrible.
Right.
It's just very, very sad.
Or with a family and it's 5 adult grown children that have all different ideas. So I can see how that would be very difficult to work through. The same question for power of attorney. Here's my question. At what point do you recommend it? Because as you're talking, I'm thinking almost everybody should have these documents in place at an age of significant maturity.
I agree with you 100%. A lot of times people will call in, they're like 40. Oh, I don't know if I should have a power of attorney. Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Because who do you want to have control over your money? I mean, most people, if you're 40 and you're married, yes, it's going to be your husband. But to be honest with you, we've had people who say, I really don't want it to be my husband. And I'll say, well, do you understand that your husband does have some rights? Yeah, but he's okay. He's not the best with dealing with things. I'd rather have my sister. I'd rather have my brother, and he's okay with that. We've had people who they don't have their husband. They have a family member, like a sister or a brother, and that's okay too. Again, it goes back to, who do I want to have control over if something happens to me? So, as I said, I think that's really important.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, as you said, let's turn to wills and estates, and to a certain degree, it's let's start off. I think the same issue that for a will, it's kind of like at any age of maturity and adulthood, it probably is warranted to have a will, even at a young age. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's never too early. It's never too early to have a will. It really is not. But I agree. It all comes down to, what do you want to do with your money? Unfortunately, we have had situations where, if there's an adoption along the way and wills aren't changed, family members, I would like to say that every family gets along, but that's not reality.
No, it's not.
So, and our intestate laws are very clear as to who gets money. And if you don't want that person who would be normally, and an intestate means that you die without a will, and those laws we have to follow. It's just the way it is. So if you don't want that person to get that money, and again, I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's something that you control. If you want someone else, or if you want a charity to get, your money, you are entitled to that, under Pennsylvania law. So it is really important to do those type of situations. As I said, age of maturity, and you go from there. Again, it's the control, just like with the power of attorney and healthcare power of attorney, you're controlling, where your estate, where your money goes to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let me ask you this, Karen, because there's a lot of online platforms now where you can purchase legal documents. Why is it better to use an attorney? I assume it is, but why is it better? And if someone uses these online forms, are they protected?
Well, first of all, if you're using an online form, then there's nobody helping you. There's nobody answering your questions. there's certain case law. I mean, we are a case law state, and I want to make the distinction. We have the probate code in Pennsylvania, but there's judges' decisions that interpret the probate code, and we are a common law state. So the online form is not going to tell you, oh, but in Pennsylvania, it's not only the statutes, it's the judges' interpretations. It's not going to tell you that. We had a person come in, and it was just one of those little things about how you write a will. It wasn't written exactly the way we would write it, and it dealt with paying their inheritance taxes. And the Attorney General's office basically said, wait a second, some of this money goes to a charity, and she's not getting as much money as we would have liked because of the way the will was written. Okay. We didn't write it, we just didn't. She came into us afterwards, and it was like, this is a problem because of the way it's written. And when someone looks at it down the road, and in this case, the woman was giving money to charity, the Attorney General's office has to be notified. A lot of people don't know that, but they do. Right. And they'll look at it and say, nah, she doesn't get this amount. She gets this amount. And then it's like, well, why? And we have to explain it to her. I just had interesting that we were supposed to do this today, Cindy, because I had a phone call this morning from a woman who apparently did a power of attorney online, and the bank is not accepting it. And the first thing I said to her is, and just so that you understand this, and I'm sure your viewers know this, but we offer free consultations, the initial phone call, the consultation. And as part of that, I told her that I wanted to look at the document because I can't answer her questions about it until I actually look at the document, which she's going to be giving to me as part of her free consultation.
That's great.
And then and see whether, what we can do to help her, because unfortunately it's a situation with her husband. And, again, no one's telling you a lot of the different things about, not only does Pennsylvania follow the statute, but you also have the case law. They don't tell you that. And they also might not tell you that in Pennsylvania, something has to be notarized. Sometimes in other states, they don't have to be notarized. So you're not dealing with you don't even know where this online company is from. It could be from another country.
Right. Right. So that's a good point.
It could be from another country. We have no idea where they're at, and it can really get messy. It can get very, very messy. But I wanted to kind of throw that in there. We do offer, as you probably know, our free initial consultation with people, and I know that people are very grateful when they call in, and I'll say, number one, we can't help you, but sometimes we refer to other people who can, or we'll tell them that we try to help them as best we can on that with reference to their questions.
Yeah. Well, and what it sounds like, Karen, is anybody that has any kind of assets or whether it's just like 100,000 or whatever, but if you have any kind of assets, I would think you would want the peace of mind to work with an attorney and be sure that nothing's going to fall through the cracks.
Absolutely. And also just that you want, again, you worked hard for that. You worked hard for that money, no matter how much it is. And you want to be able to give it to who you want to give it to. Again, it's one of those things. Nobody likes to talk about death. Nobody likes to say, this is going to happen to me. But as my husband always says, none of us make us out of here alive. It just doesn't happen.
That's true.
So it just doesn't happen. So one of the things that we do, try to do is tell people this is, again, another way. And I don't mean to be repetitive, but it's another way of making your family who's behind their lives easier. Yes. It really does. Both the power of attorney, the healthcare power of attorney, and the wills. Yeah. It's a theme that we, when people come in and they're apprehensive about doing something, we always tell them, do you really, isn't it your goal to make, when you leave here, that your family is not, struggling with a lot of different things, that you're making their lives a little bit easier. And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. Yeah. So, and that's what these documents do. Yeah.
I'd like you to explain two concepts that you talked about. You mentioned intestate, and you mentioned probate. Can you tell us what exactly those terms mean?
Sure. With reference to the word intestate, as I said, basically what that means is that a person dies without a will.
Okay.
In Pennsylvania, there is a statute that outlines if you're married, how much money that person gets, whether you have children, and it's just right down the line. You have to follow
Okay.
it. It's the way it is. And again, with wills, if you don't want to give money to your son because he's never done anything for you, a lot of people are very upset with the person, or you feel that you have supported him through so many different things, and maybe your daughter or your other daughter, you haven't done as much for them throughout their life, and therefore you want your money to go to your daughters and not your son. It has to
Yeah.
be through a will, because otherwise, if my husband is deceased, it's going to go to my children. It's just the
Yeah.
way it is. It's the way the law is set up. So that's important with reference to
Okay.
knowing that. And the word probate, and I want to kind of mention this, is that we have what I would refer to as our secret weapon in our office. We have a woman, our estate paralegal, Sue Kester, who worked in our Register of Wills office for, I always tease her. I say she worked there for 150 years, but that's not true. But she really worked there for a very long period of time, over 30 years. And one of the things that I truly believe is that she will see and has seen more wills than I will ever see in my lifetime. Because
Wow.
when you're probating a will, you're bringing it into the Register of Wills office. That's what the word probate means. You're putting it Register of Wills office, and there are certain things that have to be done, and she is so good at this. As I said, I feel very fortunate to be here and to work with her in this. And as I said, she's been here for a long time.
Yeah.
She's been doing this work for a long time. And she's also very good at, if somebody has questions about even writing a will, she'll say, just so that you understand, I had a case and this was like this. And of course, that all comes from experience. So I do want to give a shout out to Sue, because she's great.
That's great.
But as I said, that's what the word probate means. It's basically you're taking the will and filing it in the Register of Wills office. And obviously we do that. And it's not just a little bit, we don't just do that in Schuylkill County. It's not just here. We have done this in other counties as well. Luzerne, Lackawanna, Monroe. There's a lot of different counties that we work in that are not far from Schuylkill County. And one of the things that Sue is very good at, and we all know this, if you do estate work, which as long as she's been doing it, is that everybody has different rules. Lehigh County has different rules than Luzerne County. And so it's really important for attorneys to know those rules and making sure that we're doing it properly in the county that the person passed away. So she's very good at contacting that county. What are the specific guidelines for that county? And as I said, we don't just deal with Schuylkill County, we deal with other counties as well. And I did want to mention that with reference to this particular program.
That's excellent. And how it's awesome that you have someone with that level of experience working in the office. How can someone get in touch with you? What's the best way to do that? Call your firm if they want to get in, have some questions maybe.
Well, we have, as you know, we have an 800 number. I'm familiar with the 570 number, the 570-874-3300. But I also have an email, which is all lower caps, and it's kbn at o'connorlaw.com. And we have, again, we're very fortunate in this office to have an intake department. And when you call the 570-874-3300 number or the 1-800 number, which I know you're going to have.
Yes, we'll put that up.
Okay, thank you. And we have an intake department, and they get some questions they talk to you, they figure out what's going on. And then Ellen or Kathy or a variety of other people send me emails. In fact, that's how I was talking to this woman today and indicating, you need to give me this document so that I can figure out, what happened here, and that the bank's not accepting this power of attorney. But we have a great relationship with our intake department. They consistently follow up on things. Karen, did you do this? Karen, did you do this?
That's great.
And I like that. And I mean that in a good way, because it's important to our clients. People who call in here are very, very important to us. And when when people call in here, they're entitled to have an answer. Maybe we can't help them, and maybe we have to give them to someone else or refer them to someone else, but at least they're entitled to an answer. So Ellen and Kathy and all of our intake department, they're very good at saying, Karen, you need to do this and you need to do this now. And I like that. I really do.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yes, it is. Well, Karen, listen, thanks so much for your time today. This is great information. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Well, thank you. I really do appreciate that too. And I'm very sorry I don't know that 1-800 number off the top of my head, because I always get the 570 number out to people, but I hope you put it up there on the screen.
We're going to put it up on the screen. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
To those of you that are watching, if you have additional questions, just type them into the comments area and we'll make sure we answer them. And thanks so much for being with us today. Have a great rest of your day.